The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Ian Hughes. So Dr. Ian Hughes. I'm an honorary Doctor of Technology at Solent. And I'm also known as ePredator Online. So if you need to find me, at ePredator on Twitter or any of the gaming platforms, wherever you want to look. And I'm going to talk today about the games advances from 2020. So some things that have happened, and this is a lot of this is personal experience, and this is my opinion. This isn't the all singing, all dancing top list of games ever. But I would say that everything in this is things that I've bought. So none of this is promotional activity, I'd like to add. So just to let you know, I am. I'm going to do a little bit of an intro and how we can say goodbye to 2020 because it's been an unusual year, but hopefully find some of the good parts and the things that have kept us all going over that period. How games have helped us so much, which ones stood out, and a little bit of what's next. And in this presentation, all my 3D clip art is courtesy of Microsoft PowerPoint because I hadn't really used the 3D clip art very much before, so I've gone a little bit mad with it. So apologies for that. Most of the game's images, almost 99% of them, are from my own little screenshots as well. So just a bit of background. Say I'm known as ePredator Online. That's my handle. I've worked in the tech industry for 30 plus years. I'm currently a senior research analyst at 451 Research, which is part of S&P Global Market Intelligence. So I cover industrial IoT, AR, VR, autonomous robots, and some of the games industry as well. I also practice a martial art called Choi Kwan Do, and for years I was in, and still am, in lots of virtual worlds, including Second Life, which is something that's kind of relevant to all the things that are going on today as well, as we try and learn to communicate online in lots of unusual ways, hopefully. Now, I should also add a little plug. Before I started at 451, I wrote a couple of science fiction novels called Reconfigure and Context. They're just 99p on Kindle, but they're relevant to this conversation because the lead character Roshin is a gamer and a developer, and all the things that she does in the various adventures in this kind of AR, VR, quantum IoT world that she lives in, which is set tomorrow afternoon, so it's not far future, is all kind of relevant from the kind of game experiences and the things that I've felt over the past 30 years. So feel free, go and have a look. I hope you enjoy it and drop me a review if you like it. If you don't, drop me a review anyway because it's always good to know. So 2020, what can be said about 2020? Bless it. I believe we've all been locked down in our houses and our various kind of unusual situations, and it's felt like the wolf's at the door and things are coming to get us. And really, for me, it's also felt a bit like we've been on the space station. We've got the potential doom of being outside space without our spacesuit on, but we haven't quite had the excitement of the exploration of space, and that's been the real pity of this particular year. But also, I've spent most of the time when I do my my COVID walk round our garden. I go wandering around our garden, sort of do a couple of miles round and round like a teddy bear with my earphones in, listening to Audible books, and inevitably I've been listening to sci-fi and space things. It's really bizarre thing to be listening to other people trapped in a space station when I felt like I'm trapped in a space station. But undoubtedly, communications and games tech has got us all through this. So from many of the office workers, I know not everyone can work from home, but people that work from home or have now been forced to work from home are relying on the computers and the technology and the communications to be able to get things done. And it's kind of proved that we can work remotely. I've worked at home for the past 20 plus years, so it wasn't a big surprise to me that we could all cope. But also in this, gaming technology has been this lifeline to other worlds. And it's given us places to explore. And if you're stuck in the same office or stuck in the same house or stuck in the same garden with the same people all the time, family's great, friends great, whoever you're with, or if you're on your own, there's still places to help your brain go somewhere else and do something else and see something else and experience it in a playful way. But it's also given us ways to explore those places together. So gaming doesn't have to be just you in the game, but it's good to do that sometimes. And it doesn't have to be online and with your mates all the time or with random strangers playing games. It's got everything, which is beneficial when you're trying to kind of settle your mental state and get out of whatever funk you're in that particular day. You just pick the appropriate way that you want to engage with the game. And also, it's interesting that you don't have to wear a mask to play a game, but actually in the game you are wearing a mask. But very often we are being some form of avatar, some form of game character. Might be the environment, might just be a little pixel running around, but we are covering up a little bit of who we are, but also showing who we are through our various pieces of gameplay. So that is the basis for why I want to kind of share some of the things that I've experienced in these games, particularly this year, as I've been a gamer forever, and we're a family of gamers in this house. And it's important, I think, to remember that I'm talking primarily about games. I'll talk a little bit about the kit that we run the games on. But I said this is a roundup of my personal experience. But the important thing to remember is that all forms of games, it doesn't matter how simple they may seem, the core of them is about narrative. There's lots of fancy tech. There's lots of interesting kind of visuals and sounds, lots of unusual game mechanics. But at the core, it's what it feels like and the story it's trying to tell. And that doesn't mean to be like a 3-hour or a 200-hour story arc. It can just be one simple little thing, like a dog trying to escape a dinosaur. It's a story. And it's, what does that mean to you? Whose dog is it? What's the dinosaur doing? Is he going to eat him, or is he going to say hello to him? All those things kind of fit into the game's world, which makes it somewhat different from traditional software. So enterprise software, you're not really bothered about your email client in quite the same way as about your game experience, I would suggest. So, 2020. It's been an unusual year. This is for hardware, in that we've had, in the middle of a pandemic, we've had new consoles appear, new gaming consoles. There's Sony's PS5, Microsoft's Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S, possibly the weirdest named consoles in the world. And those have been incredibly hard to get and still are. And if any of you are trying to get hold of one of these, we're all kind of experiencing various issues with that. I was lucky enough to get a Series X on release date. I haven't got anywhere near a PS5 yet. That's because, as you all know, as soon as stock appears, our wonderful friends, the scalpers, with their various bots, get in, buy them all up, and then try and sell them back to us for ridiculous sums of money. So that's been an interesting way we've been kind of fed upon by those scalpers. So I really wish they wouldn't do that. Nintendo Switch as well also got in incredibly short supply for reasons that I'll show you on the next slide. And also this year we had the release of Facebook's Oculus Quest 2 standalone VR headset. And the original Quest was good. The Quest 2 is better. And it also, they caused them to phase out their Rift S headset, because now the Quest 2 can act standalone, or you can put a cable in it and plug it into your gaming rig. So it's become the ubiquitous headset that doesn't require any other fancy setup. You don't have to put any sensors up or anything like that. It just uses inside-out cameras, knows everything that's going on. It's a really good bit of kit. And we've also seen the ongoing rise, it wasn't necessarily just 2020, but of high-end graphics cards in PCs. I mean, really high-end graphics cards in PCs that are now able to do full-on ray tracing at pace. And a lot of this is powered by various AI, artificial intelligence processors inside the graphics cards. Our graphics cards are now AI cards in order to be able to understand what's going on with a view that they're trying to generate. And this kind of slightly blurry picture you see is of Minecraft. And Minecraft is the weirdest place to put ray tracing, it would seem. But to put reflections into this blocks world elevates it way above. I mean, it's always been good since back in 09. It's been a fantastic place to kind of hang out. But now those blocks on the bottom are just shiny mirrored blocks, and you can create your own world with your own lighting and different feel to it. And the stills, like most of this stuff, don't do it justice. The ray tracing is wonderful, though, I have to say. And there's more than one company doing ray tracing cards, and of course the high-end cards that have come out recently are now being bought up by the scalpers to kind of prey upon us like they do with the rest of the consoles. And we've also seen new ways to buy game time this year or last year, particularly Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which now gives you a kind of subscription-based curated set of games that you can get to rather than buying the full fat game. You get AAA games, and you get indie games, and you get them on your PC, you get them on your Xbox, and you also get them on cloud. And cloud gaming is another one of these things that's been trying to emerge for several years. In fact, for a decade, I would say at least. And we're getting closer. We're still not there yet because cloud gaming, the way games works is complicated and makes it really difficult when you've got latency and large bandwidth shifting around of images and sound and trying to make them be precise at 60 or 120 frames a second. But we might get there. We'll see. For now, cloud gaming is good for some things, particularly turn-based games. I would suggest they are the place to be. But I want to talk about one of the major games, and this is something I wasn't expecting. If you'd asked me a year ago, would this be what I would be talking about? And that is on the Switch, on Nintendo Switch, Animal Crossing's New Horizons. Now, if you have got this and played it and seen it, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But for those of you that may not have come across it, this game is a very zen, relaxed experience. And it's really a big kind of doll's house dressing up thing, a bit of gardening, but you basically live on an island. It's your own little island on the Switch. And to start off with, it can be completely you. You wander around, you live in a tent, you collect fruit, you chop down trees, you fish, and you pick up weeds. It sounds utterly boring and utterly ridiculous, but you're doing it to start to generate some money. This is in-game money. There's no external DLC stuff going on. Nobody trying to rip you off anything here. But over time, this environment grows. You get non-player character residents arrive, of which there are many different types, but you only have a certain number on to be able to cope with on an island. You eventually end up with a town hall, as you've got there in the middle picture, and all sorts of services around that. And you end up opening an airport, and then you can fly to other islands and things. And eventually you end up with your house. So down the bottom left there is my house, which inside has many rooms, and you then fill those rooms with all these wonderful little doll's house, as I say, doll's house like toys that and artifacts that you collect or you buy or you find or you exchange. And again, this is one you can play completely solo, or you can pop into other people's islands if they want to let you in. So in our house, in that middle picture, that's my wife and my daughter and me, and I think we're on my daughter's island by the look of that, I think. And you just connect. You can connect over the internet, but we can connect locally. We don't need to go outside and just hang out on one another's island, which seems bizarre. But it's also very time-based and temporal. So things happen at certain points during the day. So you end up with a certain routine. And as you can see down the bottom left, seasons as well. The snow has recently left Animal Crossing New Horizons, but for a while you were building snowmen and doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And as you can see here, this is just one of many, many screenshots that I just foolishly keep filling my Switch up with. But at the top left there, I've got my front cover of my book is my island's flag, and I'm wearing my book's T-shirt that I made. So a little dress-up thing, brilliant. I've got a music room that I've just chosen to gather the various musical instruments that I found or bought into one place. And you can see in the top right, if I don't want to have green spiky hair, I can have a mohawk instead and just be a bit more punk about it. And middle on the left, working toilets. I mean, why wouldn't you have a working toilet in a video game? And bang smack in the middle there, we have all experienced our birthdays in this house in Second Life. Oh, not in Second Life, in Animal Crossing. Freudian slip. In Animal Crossing. And in there, the residents, the non-player character residents, wish you happy birthday, but we all gather on one another's island and in our house to celebrate birthdays and give one another presents and have cake and stuff like that. And we also celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary in Animal Crossing, because where else was there to go? We were in lockdown. And the thing has been constantly expanding. So to the bottom left, they are, I believe they have like a 5-year content plan for this thing or something. So they are always giving us new and interesting things to do, like going swimming. And bottom there in the middle, there's a full art collection to try and fill your local museum with. And you can't do it all in one go. You can't just buy your way into it. It's a bit of kind of like Pokemon and things like that, just kind of collections. And then bottom right, there's turnips. That's almost impossible to describe, but every Sunday morning before 12 o'clock, we all sign on. You see our 3 switches there. We sign on to find on our island little Daisy May, little character who sells turnips. And those turnips have a fluctuating price. And different islands, you get a different kind of profile of how that price is going to play out. You buy these turnips, and then twice every day for the next week, the turnip price changes. And you try and play the turnip stock market. And we play the turnip stock market by checking on one another's islands. So that means every day, twice a day, for the past year, we've been going on effectively trying to see what price we can get for turnips. And if you run to the end of the week and you haven't sold them, they rot and they spoil and you lose all the money. It doesn't matter, you don't need the money for anything, but it's just become a little family bond that we mess around with these turnips and panic if we haven't checked up turnip prices. And then also for me, I kind of put my company that's publisher of my book, Feeding Edge, got a little T-shirt and a little logo, and that's available on other islands. People can kind of grab hold of that user-generated content. And say this has been a very relaxing Zen-like thing. You can just sit and chill and just look at the stars or whatever. You don't have to go all out, and just a few moments of just relaxation every day with that has been magical. And there's nothing going to kill you, nothing to shoot at. It's not a dangerous place to be, and that's its prime reason to exist, I would suggest, in these particular times. So, just to mix it up a bit, just so you don't think I only do Little Doll's House stuff, there was a really interesting change to the expectation of what esports was and people's awareness of esports. So the F1 initially 2019 game, which was being played in 2020, and now the 2020 game, got picked up by the FIA and by Sky and to do simulated versions of the real Grand Prix that had subsequently been cancelled. And in doing that, initially it was a kind of pro-celebrity joke around thing that they were doing. They'd have a couple of real F1 drivers and then a couple of like footballers or golfers and jockeys and then some comedians and some YouTubers, and they all race. And the thing was being broadcast. It was on YouTube. But it was also on Sky Sports F1 HD. So it was in exactly the same place you would expect it to be, and the kind of same level of commentary that you would expect from the real physical race. And this last season, they started to bring in more of the actual pro F1 esports drivers, because all these teams have professional esports drivers associated with them. And these guys race weekly in the same way that the F1 physical drivers do. But so now those esports drivers were the ones setting the qualifying or doing the qualifying time to place the Formula One drivers on the grid. So there was this nice blend of what was going on there. And what was particularly good was that George Russell, who's a young and up and coming driver in F1, just blitzed it. He won everything. If he turned up, it didn't matter where he was on the grid, he just won. And it kind of showed the level of accuracy of these things to be able to take his skill at physical driving and apply it to the game. And Alex Albon was running in there as well. He was, but George was doing the thing, and so he's kind of champion. And I should just do a plug. On the 10th of March, we've got a BCS esports presentation, or an esports presentation to the BCS. So get onto our website and check out that, and come and listen to some of the things that are going on, particularly around HND and esports. And the things, it's not just being the player, just like it's not just being the driver. There's lots of support activities, and there's esports is a very much growing area. So check that out. Another weird thing, or interesting thing from the year was Mario turning 35. Mario used to, when I first met Mario, he was trying to run and jump over some barrels with a big hammer, trying to rescue a princess from Donkey Kong. He was kind of a bit part player, really, because Donkey Kong always seemed to be even though he was the bad guy, was the lead. But obviously Mario was turned into a massive Nintendo asset and character. And this year they teamed up with Lego to create Lego Mario. Now this little chap on the left is some Lego put together. He's about half a hand high, or about a palm high, I guess. And if you look, his eyes and his little stomach there are actually screens. So this is a powered Lego brick that you turn on. It's Bluetooth connected. It's got all sorts of sensors in as well. And his eyes are animated, and he makes sounds and things like that. And the aim of this is to take the video game and make it physical. So for Mario, you place some Lego bricks that have various barcodes and various colours on and indicators, but they look like the Super Mario game, but they're Lego. And you string them together into a course, and then you use Mario to walk around that course and bounce around that course by hand, just like you do. If you're playing with any toy, physical toy, like when you're a kid and you got a horse, you kind of make it go clippity clop and bounce it around. This, you do it with Mario, but he's responding to your actions. He's making the sounds. He's collecting coins as he's bouncing. If you flip him up and make him do a jump, it makes a jumping noise. It's also talking to an app that's recording the time it's taken for you to hit all these various things on this course. And it is incredible and surprising. And every time he does something slightly different, I think, oh, I didn't realize he did that. Like if he accidentally falls over, he looks dazed. It's a genius bit of kit. And the other thing that they released was this kind of augmented reality Mario Kart. So on the right there, you see it's a radio controlled car with a camera on the top. So it looks like Mario, and it's a car. And Mario Kart's obviously a huge game. And in this, you use your Switch to drive the car. So that's the control for the car. And the camera is what you see on your Switch screen. So you can look at the car, or you can look at the camera, or you look at the screen, whichever you want to do. But on your screen, you get an augmented reality view of the world. You can see the physical things that you've set out. So you've set out these cardboard gates, which have effectively QR codes on that the camera can detect that there's a gate. And because it can detect that, it can then superimpose the road to that gate over that view. And it also superimposes a digital version of Mario across. If you can see where the camera is, the camera can't see Mario, but in the picture in the middle, I can see Mario. So it gives you lots of ways to do costumes and throw things around and race. And you can have a couple of these racing. So there's a Luigi one as well, a couple of switches, and you're also racing against non-player characters as well. And it is utterly engaging. And the more you play it, the faster the cart gets. So you think, oh, this is a bit tame. And then by the end of it, you've got a 250cc little cart that razzes round and is actually quite difficult to control, even if you're an F1 driver. So then there's that's kind of physical world, kind of matching in, and some toys and some distractions. But there was a game that kind of hit or got really popular suddenly, almost out of nowhere, on the PlayStation, called Fall Guys. And in this is 50 people come together in funny little costumes and run across an obstacle course. It's a knockout or Takeshi's Castle or Total Wipeout, as they pick your decade. And it is, again, you do fall off things, and if you're not quick enough, you don't get through, and sometimes somebody grabs hold of you or pushes you off or whatever. But it is just joyful, and it's the only way to be in a crowd. And to just be in that hustle and bustle and charge, it just doesn't feel aggressive. It just is colourful and funny. Gets a bit tense when you start running. You've got that instant panic, but it's a different panic to the rest of the panic that we might all be feeling because of the lockdown. And I believe they've just been bought up by Epic, who own Fortnite. So it's going to be interesting to see where this company goes with this one. And then there's the other slightly strange social game that seemed to get some traction. Now, I have to admit, this wasn't high on my list of things I wanted to play. But Among Us, and in this, so it's not a game from 2020. It just became suddenly popular in 2020. It's a quick social game where you try and work out who among you is trying to kill you all. And so one person becomes the bad guy, but you talk to one another trying to guess who's doing what, and you go off and do tasks, and you can sabotage things or not sabotage things. And it's that, I think it worked because of that enemy within. The notion that when we're in a crowd, we know we're not infected necessarily, might not be we may be asymptomatic, so we maybe don't know we're not infected, but the fact that there's something in this crowd that might impact us. And I mean, the reason I didn't really want to play it is because it felt like The Thing. So if you've seen John Carpenter's The Thing, it's scary, and knowing who to trust and all those sorts of things, it wasn't ideal for my mental health. But my kids loved it, and they were having a whale of a time for a little while. And I believe it even got into American politics in some way as well. So it's worth having a look. Now I'm going to go on to sort of higher end VR stuff. Virtual reality for me has been an absolute godsend, because say sat in the same room or looking at the same screen all the time for work, whether it's Zoom or Team or whatever, you're still in the same place and not actually getting out and going out and traveling and doing the things you used to do for work. That being able to put a VR headset on and this entire office disappears and becomes something else is fantastic. And Star Wars Rogue Squadron came out, and it doesn't have to be played in VR, but it works best in VR, I'd suggest. And you are sat in an X-Wing or a TIE Fighter, but you are sat in space in something that, for me, I grew up in, I was 10 when Star Wars came out originally, so it's always been there for me as this is an iconic brand and an iconic feel. And to sit in that X-Wing and look around and look at the dials and look just is beautiful. And photos and videos do not do justice to any VR stuff or any gaming stuff for that matter. VR, you have to put the headset on, you have to move your head, you will feel you're there. And one of the interesting things with this was that you would expect to be looking straight out across the cockpit most of the time, or maybe left and right. But because it's got a glass ceiling, when you start pulling back on the stick and you're trying to see where the bad guys are that are trying to shoot you, you tend to look up because that's the biggest view you get. And so I found I got a big crick in my neck playing Star Wars because I was constantly arcing my neck back with the headset on, trying to look up through this window as I try and trying to track the targets. But it's also, there's been so many Star Wars games, and I grew up playing this Star Wars vector-based one. We used to sit, for hours in that cockpit, and so to have something that's this good just sat on my desk is just tremendous. The other slightly weird thing that I found in VR was called, and again, doesn't have to be in VR, was called Wrench. And I'm a software engineer by trade, and I'm not necessarily overly mechanical, but I am interested in engineering. I just can't do it very well. I didn't think I could. But I do remember as a kid changing spark plugs and changing oil on a car, or helping my dad do it. And we just don't do that anymore. So this environment gives you an entire garage with all the wrenches you could possibly need, and the drills and the bits and stuff, and a car with every single part modelled on it. It is a full internal combustion engine, modelled and operational. And the wheels, if you have to take the brake apart, the way the calipers are held together and the little clip that you have to move in order to dismantle it is incredible. And so I kind of got into, for a little while, into this ultra real engineering. And whilst it gives you tasks to do that are supposed to be at your skill level, like change the oil, I couldn't resist just ripping the engine apart and then finding I couldn't put it back together again, which is pretty much what you'd expect. But because it's digital, you can hit the reset button. But just the hands-on, intricate focus on an engineering task was for me, again, very mentally relaxing. And whilst I don't have a picture of it here, there was also one in VR for modelling clay. So as the potter's wheels spinning, you kind of shape the clay and decorate the clay. And again, utterly relaxing, just takes you're somewhere else, doing something else. Brilliant. And then, of course, there's the big guy of VR this year, which was Half-Life Alyx. So Half-Life, huge game, or Half-Life 2 as well, particularly huge game, quite a long while ago now, but was set the bar for all sorts of reasons, for physics and for gameplay and story. And they just hit us with this VR version of the game. These aren't my images. These are off their website, because it's really hard capturing stuff in VR and doing screenshots because you're using your hands, and it's very difficult to kind of get to the print screen button. But it was talked about a lot in the press, and I think it's some of the patterns of how the gameplay's been developed and what it's done. I think they have set the bar again. This is the important VR game in this genre. And I would say I've not completed it yet because it just got too stressful again. So I'm a gamer. I love games, but I sometimes I just need to relax. So going back to Animal Crossing, chill out. There was one particular point in this where I was surrounded by walls that were gradually breaking down. I had to sort something out quickly. All the walls collapsed at the same time, surrounded, kind of dealt with the bad guys somehow in this kind of panic way where you're trying to reload a gun while they're trying to maul you to bits. And I got rid of them, and I just thought, oh, thank heavens for that. And I just stopped. And so my character is currently sat somewhere in a corner weeping. But I will get back. I will get back to it, because it was quite a long way through the game, I think. And talking of things that I couldn't cope with, Last of Us Part 2, honourable mention here, PlayStation 4 and 5 game. It's critically acclaimed, and we own it. My son's playing through the original Last of Us now and going to hit Part 2 soon. But I played the original Last of Us, I think it was on the PS3. It was quite a long while ago. And it did my head in then. And fantastic technical achievement, great storytelling. But it's dystopian, it's about zombies and viruses and things coming to get you, and just didn't need that. For some people that might be cathartic, but for me that was too much of probably the life we're living. It felt like you'd be going out in the garden and rather than kind of trying to escape and do something else. So recommend it, I believe, but not for me. Instead, lots and lots of wide open spaces in games, lots of ability to just experience some different scenery, and lots of free roaming and lots of heroic fighting, right? So yes, there's bad guys, but you can take a rest from the bad guys and just chill. And Ghost of Tsushima on the PlayStation is a fantastic achievement. Beautiful looking game. It just felt wonderful. I've got a friend who's played it solidly all the way through 2 or 3 times. My son has too as well. I'm still halfway through it because, as you see, I dance around games, just kind of experiencing just the highlights sometimes. But this one, it's on my list to go back and complete because it's just so lovely. But also in scenery and free roam and heroic fighting, there's a bit of a theme here. We had the release of Watchdog Legion, and Watch Dogs is a techie dystopian thing going on. But this one, rather than being feudal Japan and scenery of that nature, it's London. And, I never used to really like going to London that much if it was for work, but I kind of miss it. And so to have this slightly adjusted version of London, because it's set in the future, is quite good fun to wander around. It's not one for one, but most of the tube stops are there and stuff like that. And it's got that London vibe and that UK thing. And Stormzy did a video in it and is in it himself, so it's very iconic. But before the lockdown, the pandemic, it was being kind of advertised as this post-Brexit dystopia, which kind of fits as well. So it's like, if we hadn't have had the pandemic, what sort of state would we be in, and where's that going? So it was that and the tech, and it's a little bit further in the future than some of the other things, makes it an interesting game. And then there's Spider-Man Miles Morales, an exclusive on the PlayStation, and it's more scenery. New York this time, lots of free roam, swinging around, being Spider-Man, fantastic. Lots of heroic fighting again. But I have to admit that these shots are from the very early opening stages of this game, because I've only just started playing it, because foolishly, I thought it was a PlayStation 5 exclusive. So this was what I was waiting for, a PlayStation 5 to then play. And I'm sure it's better on the PlayStation 5, but it works on the PS4. So my son noticed that, and so he's completed it, said it's wonderful. And so that's my weekend sorted, because I'm going to be, well, it may take longer than the weekend, but I'm going to be playing Spider-Man Miles Morales on the PS4 and just slumming it on the old tech for a bit. And then there's the big guy in this space, I would say, that, again, more scenery, more free roam, more heroic fighting, with Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And this takes you, so rather than feudal Japan, this is taking you back to Saxon and Viking England. It's a vast map, as with many of these things that particularly that Ubisoft does, and you travel along the rivers and you go exploring, and you can do the missions and you can follow the storyline, or you can just chill and ride a horse around and enjoy what you see. And for me, it's the first game ever that's had Borough Castle in it, and Borough Castle is a Roman bit of wall, effectively, by the Broads near Great Yarmouth, near where I grew up. And we used to cycle to Borough Castle and just kind of chill and play knights and soldiers and stuff like that. And now it's a mission in Assassin's Creed. I mean, the castle bears no resemblance to the thing that was actually there, but that's not the point. The fact that I could travel across to the east of England and jump into Borough Castle made me quite happy. But also, Assassin's Creed, like Animal Crossing, is full of fishing. I don't know, every single game it's not a game if it hasn't got fishing in it. So whatever you're doing, you can just stop, chill out, drop the line in, catch fish. And I think that those mechanics of taking the tension away from the game is an interesting kind of approach that many game designs have. And then there's Cyberpunk 2077. A lot of press, most of it bad. It's a dystopian free roam again round this wonderful futuristic city with lots of body modifications and gadgets and kit and tech and smoke and stuff. And also in the bottom right there, you can see if you're playing on a PC, it's got some ray tracing, so you can see yourself in a puddle. wonderful. So that's beautiful bits of graphics. And on next gen and PC, it's fantastic. I really enjoyed it. But on current gen, on Xbox One, on PlayStation 4, it was a mess, to the point that it got taken off the stores and they were given refunds, and it just absolutely, even the fact, Keanu Reeves is in it is fantastic and he does a great job, but that was sort of tarnished by the fact that they rushed the current generation versions and messed it up. So they had a PR battle on their hands, which they shouldn't have had, because this should have been the jewel in the crown for the year. And then the company's also got hacked. So ransomware, they've been hit, and in part that's probably because they annoyed the wrong gamers. And not all gamers are hackers, obviously, but they're people that are interested in this space are obviously going to be interested in doing it for real. Long hype cycle, overpromised, because it's years have been going on about this. But I think in the end it'll come out all right, and I've really enjoyed it. I took the day off work to play it when it came out, and I've played it on Xbox Series X, I've played it on PC, and I've even played it on Stadia on the cloud just to see if it worked. But fingers crossed, because this could become just like The Witcher 3 that they have did. It's become a kind of cult classic. And talking of classics, just a little bit of roundup of things that get remade. Say old games never die, especially good ones. Final Fantasy VII appeared. It's the remake of Final Fantasy VII. I played it in the 90s, the original one, fantastic game, probably one of the best games ever made from a story point of view. And I spent 147 hours back in the 90s. That used to be the thing. I knew I'd finished. I don't often finish games, but 147 hours to finish this, which obviously now pales into insignificance because I'm about 450 hours into Animal Crossing and I don't really do anything in it. But this completed a story. And if you're going to watch a series or something like that, 147 hours is a long while. So that's why they've only made part one, because they're doing lots of CGI and fancy stuff. But I didn't like it too much because they'd changed the combat. It's become a real-time combat, whereas it used to be a bit more like chess. It was a thing you could stop and think about and pause and do things. And yes, it's modernised it, but it's modernised it too much for my liking. At the moment, I may give it another go. But the one I did really like, and my kids liked as well, which was fantastic, was the reboot of Tony Hawk. So Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, the most enjoyable and relaxing combo game you could have. It just flows, it just works. And the moment it's booted up and I went down that first ramp, I was just taken back to the original time I played it, and the many, many hours again spent on it. It's fantastic. And, you don't have to be brilliant at it to get enjoyment out of it. It's just the joy of skating and flowing and just moving and transitioning. Highly recommend it. And I haven't really mentioned a lot about the core first-person shooters like Call of Duty, and I'm not going to. They get enough publicity anyway. But Call of Duty Black Ops was set in the 80s, so again, it was taking me back to my childhood or my teen years, and for some reason, in a little kind of Easter egg behind a locked door or a locked gate, I got obsessed with getting this lock undone. I undid the lock. So there's no shooting going on at this point. There's a little computer, and it had a prompt, a little C prompt. And I kind of listed the files, just tapping in. You have to tap in on this keyboard at the top right. And turned out it had a games directory. So you go into the games directory. And then it turned out it had full versions of Infocom's text adventures from back in the day. So you can play Zork while sat in Call of Duty. And you can type in go east, pick up axe, light lamp. And it's got Zork, it's got Leather Goddess of Phobos, it's got all sorts of things in there. And as you're playing it, you type save and it remembers it. So next time you come back to Call of Duty, you can pile back in and play Zork. And I know there's emulators all over the place, but the fact that it was in an 80s themed Call of Duty high-end shoot everything that moves game, I thought was a beautiful touch. And then this is the big dog, if you like, of retro, I would say. It's not a retro game. It's just Microsoft Flight Sim has been around for years. And it's always kind of pushed the envelope, I'd say, of what you expect your machines to do. And it's not about shooting things down. It's not about missions. It's just about flying planes. So it's potentially a bit nerdy, a bit geeky, but that's what we all are. And this is, you may not fully appreciate the technical challenge that this is undertaken. It has built an entire digital twin of the whole world. So you can go and fly your plane anywhere on the planet at any time of day, real time or set the time, with real weather or simulated weather, and with real wind blowing you around, with just everything, snow, any kind of condition you can think of. And the way it's done that is with some clever AI that, rather than designers having to go and build everything by hand, which would be almost impossible to do given the size of the planet, it looks at the terrain data that we've got, and it looks at satellite imagery, and it works out what style and shape of building or what style and shape of trees and other artifacts should be where they are in this 3D model. So it's a big cloud AI generated Earth model that you are flying around. And that is awe-inspiring as a techie. It's just like, that's clever. They also do build specific things by hand. So, London Eye or bits of Las Vegas and stuff like that, and Hoover Dam. They actually craft those by hand, but the rest are done by these particular. It says, this looks a bit like an office building, let's put an office building in. And they have various archetypes based on what the AI thinks it is, and it just keeps getting better. They keep training it better. They put some more archetypes in. But most of flying is up in the air anyway, so it's only us lunatics that want to zoom around on the floor to see how it's working. But one of the things I did was my second novel, Context, when I wrote it, I tried to find a new location other than sort of here, wherever here is, and I found an island for sale off the coast of Brazil on the internet. This was a few years ago, and I then went on Google Earth and Google Street View and looked at the island and looked at the nearby town, just to get a feel of what it was like and where it fit, like a location check for a film. And now I can fly over that island, and this is what you see here. The island is there in the top right with the plane going over, and I can fly to the town that's nearby. That's part of the book, and that felt odd. I'm not sure that that's in many people's path of having found an island, written a book, and then fly over it. But again, mentally, it was very interesting and made me very happy. And I've also used Flight Sim to commute between meetings. So again, this thing of everything looks the same. If I've got the odd half hour between meetings, that would be a coffee break, I spark up Flight Sim and just fly somewhere. And I don't necessarily land, but I've seen some different scenery and my brain thinks I've been somewhere. My brain's obviously very easily fooled, but it works for me. And that's the beauty of this stuff. You can use it for however you want. And at Christmas this year, it became a VR application. So before you were looking at the screen, which is brilliant, but now VR, completely there, completely in the plane, completely of the moment. It's utterly fantastic. And with a good flight stick and just good graphics card, I can't recommend it enough. And there is a lot to explore. And just, as I say, the imagery here of Athens at night, or flying the stunt plane over Hadrian's Wall. I mean, why wouldn't you? I've bought a third-party jet because other people make different aircraft for this. So I've got an F-15. And of course, the main thing everyone does is look at your own house. So I've flown over my house and my previous house and where I was born. And it doesn't always get the house quite right, but reminiscing and going back to these areas, just as you do if you go and Google, is blooming good fun. So just to round up, I want to talk about music. So this is the experiential nature of music is always uplifting. Most people listen to some form of music and get a buzz from it. And on the Oculus and in VR, there is the game Beat Saber. And Beat Saber is a very energetic VR game. You stand up, you wave your lightsabers around, striking through blocks that are coming zooming at you in time to the music. So it's almost like drumming or conducting. But it's usually pop music, so maybe not conducting is quite the same thing. And bands have put some stuff in, so here's Green Day, you get extra Green Day tracks to play, so it's not all the same dance music that it normally is. And in our house, this is a firm family favourite with our Quest and Quest 2. Our headset is just in the kitchen. Any one of us goes along, picks it up, family, and I come down to cook the dinner, and my wife's standing there playing Beat Saber and getting a buzz out of it. It's a really good fun game, and it was so good that Facebook and Oculus bought the company, so that's going to go on to greater and greater things. Again, really good fun in VR. And then we had the major event in Fortnite where Travis Scott did a gig. So the American rapper of some renown, they produced an event. And it was an event because it was at a particular time. There were several showings of it, but it was a particular time. If you went into the game Fortnite, rather than playing the game, you were transported into this scene and this power-filled light show and music show. And you're with other people in that environment, just kind of hanging out and being thrown around in the air and stuff like that. It was very enjoyable. And just anecdotally, I thought, oh, this would be a good thing for me and my son to be in. It'd be good. He was sort of playing Fortnite, but he's gone off that a bit now. And it's like, yeah, I said, do you want to come in? Because there's a rerun of it this evening at 5:00, and he didn't seem very keen. I said, don't you want to see it? And then he finally admitted that he'd stayed up till 3:00 the night before to watch it with his mates. So he'd effectively snuck out of the house and gone to a gig, which was fantastic because he hadn't left the house, but he had done the thing that you want teenagers to do, or maybe not do. But that was quite amusing, and I was so happy that he'd done that. And it was such an important event as well. So yes, well done to him. And then another one that we shared, my son and I, was Sansa's Lost Horizon event, and this was. So Sansa is a spin-off, or was originally a spin-off of Second Life, but got bought by another company, and they've turned it into a music venue event. And Lost Horizon was a bit of Glastonbury, kind of the artists, and particularly dance artists and stuff coming together from there. And so I was in there with my guitar and weird kit, because I like to do up an avatar. And my son was in there. He decided to come as a shark, so he could do the baby shark thing. And we were basically dancing to Fatboy Slim, who you might just see in the background there is a video avatar of Fatboy Slim. So he was actually performing, or was supposed to be performing live, or it felt like he was performing live. And in that environment, there's all sorts of people dancing and laughing and joking. And the music was obviously thumping. But whilst you can go in it in 2D, I decided to go all out. So I put my VR headset on. So, that's my eyes sorted. I put completely immersive headphones on. They're both in ear and over ear, that you get bass kind of ripping through your head. And I was wearing my Wooja haptic vest. So that responds to the sound and kind of hits you a little bit with it as well. So, when you go into a particularly bassy club or place, you feel the music. This makes you feel it. And I spent 4 or 5 hours in there, and it's the longest I've spent in VR in one go, I think. And it was utterly brilliant. And say the fact it was a family party, and met with my son, and then he cleared off to do something else, and then I just kind of carried on through the night, was really enjoyable. And I'm looking forward to more like that. And there were several events like that through the year, but that's the one that really stuck with me. And so, that's my roundup of a bunch of stuff, and thank you for listening to my ramblings. But what's next? So, I would say that retro gaming is going to continue to grow, whether that's people rebuilding the classic games, the ones that we all remember, but better with better visuals, better kit, whatever. That's going to carry on because that's a good moneymaker, because there's a load of us that have been through games and now want to play them again, but don't necessarily want to play the older version. But equally, the older versions still count as well. Lots of emulators. There's a new Atari VCS console. Got that downstairs so I can play Lunar Lander and Asteroids just like it was in the arcades. That old games don't go away. Seldom go away anyway. And I think the high-end gaming rigs, things are just going to get better. I mean, the things going on with these graphics cards is stunning. I didn't think I'd bother buying another desktop PC, but I did just so I could have a graphics card in it of note. And it's sitting here glowing at me. I mean, they're so important that they put a load of LEDs on them and they flash lights at you just to show off. I think we'll see an evolution of cloud, especially as 5G starts to kick in, which is low latency and high bandwidth potential for communication. It fits better than maybe our kind of current broadband systems for dealing with remote game generation that you get with cloud. And then I really hope we see more game technology powered events. Now, in my professional life, I go to a lot of conferences and events, or did. Now I go to a lot of streamed webinars like this, or lots of video presentations and stuff. But this week, on Tuesday, Microsoft did their Mesh announcement in VR. We were all in Altspace VR to watch the VR event, which was refreshing and brilliant. And then we all mixed in VR afterwards and gathered together in little groups and discussed what went on, just like you would at a real conference. And that was fantastic. And so need to see more of those. And so overall, we'll have more fun, I hope, for all of us, whether it's at work or play. I think this the blend of work and play needs to happen. That we got rather stuck in our ways of what office was, or what office work was, and what play was, and whether VR and AR and stuff fits into enterprise. Yes, it does. And just as you see with people messing about with their videos now and putting different backdrops and stuff, like, people want to be playful, and it shows a degree of identity that I think we should persist and keep pushing on. And with that, I would like to say thank you all for listening, and I will try and address any questions when we get to the final stop of recording. But reach out to me, find me on my blog on feedingage.co.uk, find me on Twitter. Always happy to talk. And that's me. Over.